Nobody else up here was Jewish at that point. And so our first question to her was, and you can well imagine, where should we form our temple, synagogue presence? And so she said, oh, you should come to my temple. My temple is in Croton, and it is called Temple Israel. And you will love it if you can find it. And of course, we found it. It was harder to find our way back, but nonetheless, at that point.
50 some odd years ago?
Our second daughter was in kindergarten, and the oldest daughter was in third grade.
Yeah, and the major reason was to find a temple for for the kids. We wanted the kids to grow up with the right atmosphere, and it fit in very well.
And in 1953, when I was 8 years old, my parents joined Temple Israel. So that was the beginning. So the first rabbi I remember was the late Paul Steinberg. He was the rabbi officiating at my bar mitzvah.
Ellen, my oldest, was about 10 years old. I think she was going into the 5th grade. And she had her best friend was Holly Salop. Well, Holly was going to Sunday school. So Ellen said, I want to go to Sunday school. And I thought, okay, you want to go to Sunday school? Well, go to Sunday school. So we signed her up. And so we signed Matthew too, who was 2 years behind her. And that's how we got involved with the temple, was through Sunday school and through Holly Salop, who was Ellen's all through school, either best friend or worst enemy, and then best friend, and then,
My first impression was trying to find the temple itself. That was kind of an interesting journey, shall we say.
Later, David came downstairs and he said, I'm going to synagogue, I'm joining the synagogue. And he came down, and Phyllis and Rabbi Robinson greeted him warmly, Phyllis Mendelssohn, and they welcomed him. And then Seth went down about a month later. And then about 6 months later, Rabbi Robinson came visiting, and he said, the twins want to become B'nai Mitzvah, and the board says that you have to have a family connection to become B'nai Mitzvah. I said, okay, I'll join, and which is what I did.
We needed a place to live, so we drew a circle of what we could afford, and we ended up in Croton.
And then we joined the temple. We were 29 and 27, but we had 2 kids, and we thought it was a grown-up thing to do.
That's not, no, what happened was when we lived in San Diego, when he was in the Navy, it was not a Jewish town. We didn't practice, and we didn't think it was important for us to practice. So then we get to Croton, and we're still not practicing, but we didn't want to be, hypocritical about it. We just weren't practicing. So our daughter was in a Montessori nursery school, and the head of the school saw me, it was behind me in line at the supermarket, and she said to me, why are you in the supermarket? Isn't this a ha'ah? And I started to cry. I cried thinking of it. I said, oh my God, I came over, I said, we have to join the temple, because it's the way it looks to other people. It was horrible. So that's why we joined.
And when we moved up here, it was 1968, and during that year, we decided to join the temple.
The people across the street went to church, and we felt, our kids, they need to go somewhere. We can't go to church. Our kids had to have some sort of identity.
So we were really impressed, as I said before, with the rabbi, and we met the educational director at the time. It was, I believe, Phyllis Mendelssohn, and we liked what we heard. The thing that did not impress us is the building. That sort of turned us off a little bit, but then we came to the conclusion that it wasn't that important. The building is what was happening inside the building that was more important.
We found out who's in the shul, who's in the office, who's aware of these things, and then we were told that this is only part of our activities. I did not know anything about Michael Robinson. We became very, very, very close to him.
I mean, one of the things was, all our kids were bar mitzvah at Temple Israel, and they all went to confirmation. And what he said at bar mitzvah was it was a commitment. The bar mitzvah should not be your farewell address to the temple. It was just expected. And if you look at the confirmation pictures from that time, there's a lot of kids.
The rabbi sets the tone for every synagogue. And Robinson was Robinson, which was unique. When we got there, it was 1968, and the country was sort of a conservative bent to it. And he was much more liberal than most of the people on that.
A lot of people did not like his, what he believed in. And I know when High Holy Days, when he'd start his sermon, you'd see the exodus in the temple. They're leaving because they didn't want to hear what he had to say. They didn't believe, they just didn't believe him.
It was just very, very liberal. And the services tended to be, they weren't cookie cutter. You really never knew what to expect when you went on a Friday night. One night there was somebody dancing down the aisles as part of the program. There were frequently lectures that were social action oriented.
We went over there on a Friday night, and we were blown away by Rabbi Mike Robinson. Why were we blown away? Because his sermon was so interesting, even though I probably did not agree with what he had to say, but I walked out of there just thinking about what he said.
When he would get up to talk on a Friday night, perhaps, and he would start talking about Israel negatively, it wasn't unusual to see people get up and walk out. He didn't care. It didn't bother him at all.
Well, as I said, people joined because of Rabbi Robinson and left because of him. And certainly when Rabbi Ferris came, a lot of people joined because of her.
So Mike Robinson was the rabbi. Sid is home from Vietnam. We go to services, and there he is, railing against the war. He's a real, and I marched against Vietnam. So Sid would sit there in services going, I'm walking out.
So you told her.
I'm walking out. And I would go like this, don't you dare get up, don't you get up, don't you. So it turns out he had a couple of very good long talks with Mike, and they fell in love.
Yeah.
Sid and Mike, we were very, very close with the Robinsons. We were real friends.
He definitely rankled some people, and some people quit because they didn't want the temple to be associated with anti-war, particularly in Vietnam, and civil rights, of course.
Rabbi Robinson was an activist who had been to the South to protest racism, and he was known for that. And so our temple became known for this kind of approach. In fact, our temple purchased the vehicle that was used by Schwerner, Cheney, and Goodman. And that car, of course, transported them, unfortunately, to the South, where they were set upon by racists and murdered. In fact, we did march with Rabbi Robinson to Washington at one point, having gotten off the bus, of course.
Yeah, I cannot overemphasize how close our families were, and how much I loved and love Mike, and how much he influenced me. I mean, we went to the March on Washington. My dad, at his urging, formed the Social Action Committee at the temple. And, Mike truly walked the walk, not just talked the talk.
Rabbi Robinson had also been very involved in the civil rights efforts. As a matter of fact, I had been friendly with him even before we joined. In terms of some of the civil rights things. I came to a couple of civil rights meetings here at the temple even before I joined. So we talked about revitalizing the very active social justice committee that he had had. We went around talking to people, and finding out what their passions were. And if it was a social justice passion, I said, would you like to be on the social action committee? And so Norman Newman and Marilyn came on because they were interested in Ethiopian Jews. Dick Lynn was interested in rearmament. I was interested in civil rights. Everybody went their own way and did what they were interested in doing and working on the issue they cared about.
Rabbi Robinson, he was a very spiritual person, very liberal. And I remember one time he was saying that if all the authorities said that the world was going to end up in one day, he would go out and plant a tree. And that was the spirit that he brought to the temple and had that impact.
The Lynns were also interested in interfaith marriage and welcoming partners. Some of the members, the older members whose children were beginning to get married, were forming interfaith couples. And so they were very interested in ways to make sure that their children would feel welcome.
One of the things that Rabbi Robinson left us with, as a part of his PhD thesis, he introduced the Havurah movement. And so he divided the congregation into various Havurot, of which I think there must have been 4, maybe 5. I was a member at Nuella of one of the oldest and first Havurot. We called ourselves Havurah Chutzpah. The Havurah movement took hold, and these various Havurot would get together, and they would have programming in the Catskills. We would go away for a weekend.
There is
One thing
story.
that helped with the Havurah,
Yeah, Mike randomly put us in Havurah. You. And we're still close with these people.
right?
I was one of the first when Rabbi Robinson started the Havurah group. And you couldn't choose who you wanted to be with because he said, no, you have to meet people. You wanted to sit with your friends, and they said, no. You had to mix and mingle so you can meet people at the temple. And people complained, but afterwards everybody thought it was wonderful. And, many of these people have moved or have become ill or died, but I'm still here.
That's our Havurah. We all got along. In fact, we used to go off together to the Catskills. And we'd off together by ourselves with the holidays, with the kids and so on. We took everybody.
We would get together once a month in the homes, and if it were a holiday, we would celebrate the holiday with the kids, during a daytime thing. And we would go away every year for a weekend with the Havurah, and I loved it. I loved getting together, but it's just like I love getting together with people at Temple now. It's just nice,
Temple Israel had a wonderful, wonderful adult education program just before I came. They had a whole range of city college professors. I guess it was through Jack Judd.
I sang with the choir for 40 years, and it kept me going all this time.
And so I sort of auditioned over the phone with the gal who was then the choir director. And she said, would you mind singing tenor? We're very short of tenors, and you have the range. You can reach those low notes. And I said, I don't know how to get to sing with the boys. And she said, not boys, boy. It was only Jack Judd.
Oh my God.
And Jack had a very nice voice, but sometimes he could go off a little bit. So my job, and my children used to laugh about this, is Mommy's singing in Jack Judd's ear.
Well, I was in the choir for about 10 years. Eddie Pleasant was not the director at the time. He was the bass, one of the bass, and I had the pleasure of standing right next to him, so that every time in rehearsals and such, I could hear him and listen to his way he would sing, which was so outstanding.
And the way the Brotherhood was started was looking around on Friday nights after services at the Oneg room, and I saw the women of the temple. They were talking to each other, they knew each other, and the men were like standing apart from them, the women, in the corners, not talking to anybody, and not seeming to know anybody. In September of '83, I got 12 men to come to a meeting, and we sat around in the Oneg room, and we decided that we're going to have a men's club at Temple Israel. We asked Charlie Lenz to put together a constitution or bylaws for us. And one of the first things Charlie did, he came up to me and said, Richie, we shouldn't call it a men's club. We should call it a brotherhood.
Flora Salat, we had a meeting at her house. At that time, we had board meetings at homes. It was her house, and I was going with Judy Stein to a meeting, and we couldn't find out where the house was and stopped half a dozen times asking people walking dogs. And finally we did find it, but yeah, that was one of the things. Everybody was very friendly, and it was a much smaller group of people on the board.
The Brotherhood, through their social programs and through the many educational programs, especially Sunday morning breakfast, has had an impact, I believe, on the temple.
They used to be good with, was it auctions?
The rummage sale, the sisterhood
Sales
rummage
stuff,
sale.
yeah, but it was brand new stuff that, you know, people would donate stuff, but new stuff, not crap stuff. And people looked forward to it because it was very cheap, the stuff, but it was good stuff, brand new stuff.
The Sephardic Torah in the middle was stolen because it was silver. It was a big crushing thing. Mike said, what do you do when your Torah is stolen? He said, you know, there's no tradition, there's no halakha, there's nothing to do written in our history because when the Torah goes, the people go with them. If the Torah is burned, the people are burned, you know, the Torah. So there's nothing like a vibrant congregation losing a Torah. So he said, the correct response is to study the Torah. He said the correct response is to study the Torah, and that very week, that very Shabbat, the next Shabbat, we sat on the steps of the Bima and read the Torah portion and studied the Torah, and from there, every Shabbat, every Saturday Torah study started.
Torah study is wonderful, and of course, for the most part, Jennifer leads it. I love Torah study. It's an amazing study of the human condition, of the universality of the human condition, and the wisdom that is in the Tanakh. I think one of the beauties of the Torah study are the people with varied backgrounds from science, medicine, law, literature, and a couple of crazy artists and musicians. I wonder who they are. Yeah, and they're all smart. It's a constant learning process, and I find the more I do it, I think the less I'm actually raising my hand and just listening. It's one of my favorite aspects of being a member of the temple.
Rabbi Ferris, who was a rabbi in Manhattan at that point, without congregation, she'd done her required learning in Israel. She'd taken her young children with her for the year, and now she came to us as the ombudsman to get us through this period where the congregation was so split over the switching of rabbis. She liked our congregation. Of course, we loved her from the start. And so even though it was unusual for the ombudsman to now be hired by the congregation that she got through this crisis with, she became our rabbi. I remember that Estelle Linz was very close to her, and she came in as our rabbi at that point. And then we went through the Helene Ferris years.
And also Rabbi Ferris came in, so she was a major reason for the initial expansion of so many people. She really came with her just a wonderful reputation. and people really liked her.
So in 1983 or 84, I met this wonderful young lady named Jennifer April Jake. Don't shoot me for telling your middle name. And Jennifer, who after Isaac had been born, converted and got more and more involved with the synagogue in Olympia, Washington. So we moved back in '94. We moved back here. We joined the temple. Jennifer went to work for Rabbi Helene Ferris, and it just started developing from there. Jennifer and Helene became very, very close, and of course remain very, very close. And I know it was through that mentorship that Jennifer decided to study for the rabbis.
Now, we came through, as I say, through Rabbi Ferris as the rabbi, and she was a wonderful rabbi for us. And then, of course, after her tenure came Jennifer Jake. And how did that come about? Well, Jennifer, herself a Jew by choice, was really our office manager at the temple. And she was married to Bob Myers, and she was divorced at that time. And Rabbi Ferris was really taken with her skills and her warmth and her personality. And so she urged her to go to rabbinical school, which is what happened. And so Jennifer chose to become a rabbi, and it was due to Rabbi Ferris. We owe that great happenstance. And in any case, you know the rest as far as Rabbi Jake is concerned.
My kids were having bar mitzvahs, and I said, well, I have to go because Rabbi Robinson made you go. Well, no. And then after a while, and especially when the Havarat started, you kind of looked forward to it. There were the people that you knew, the people that you felt you could talk to, and it was just a very comfortable feeling. It was friendship, but more than friendship, it was also just a feeling being in there. Yeah, community, yeah.
I still feel that the base of our congregation is the B'nai Mitzvah program.
The temple has become, after my family, probably the most important part of my life. You know, the temple has given me so much, has given me an understanding of what Judaism is about, has helped me in my search for what it means to be Jewish over the years. And it's helped me raise my family and the values and the morals that are part of Judaism. It's given me so much. And I think I'm involved and have been involved because I want to give back. I think that's very important.
I think it's a sense of community. That, I mean, there's still people that we've known for 50 years, 40 years, 30 years, whatever.
But I think it was important for all of us because you always said we were family. And sometimes we weren't a family because we didn't agree with everybody. And
There are families like that.
That's for sure.
The temple is in the best place it's ever been in terms of its action, its message, its universal love, and its leadership. I see it as having grown and developed into the best place it's ever been.
For many years, you'd always think when something came up and you had to make some philosophical decision, you'd say, what would David Schwab do?